Welcome to Writing on Caffeine, the podcast where you can come along on a journey with a father and daughter as we attempt to write our first novels. I am Jonathan Franzone, and this is my daughter.
I'm Reagan, also Franzone.
We are finally back to our regular, and I say regular tentatively, recording location, the Coffee Break Cafe. We've had many bouts of sickness that have kept us from coming back here, but I think we're finally both healthy enough.
We are.
To be in public without spreading the plague. So what are you drinking today?
Well, you know, when we come here, I usually drink a white peppermint mocha, but I thought I should switch it up for the sake of the podcast. And so I told the barista lady to just get me something that was good. So she gave me a cinnamon latte, and it's not terrible.
It's not terrible?
Not terrible. I probably wouldn't get it again, but I will probably finish it.
That's fair. I'm drinking just a Colombian coffee.
Boring.
With sugar and cream.
Boring. For the sake of the podcast, get something fun.
Next time I will. So today we are going to talk about character development, and this is a topic that causes some tension in you, I believe.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad at it.
So I think one of the problems with character development is writing complex characters that are not flat.
Yes.
So do you have any ideas about how to do that, or do you have any experience with perhaps doing it poorly?
Well, let me see. I mean, obviously when you're writing a character, you want them to have a goal and like a purpose.
Right.
And so making that purpose too small, I feel like, can make them flat. But then also like not developing them, giving them a way to improve themselves over the book can make them flat. But also, I think it's really important that a character development arc not be abrupt.
Right.
Like, they can't be like grumpy, 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 sunshine. Like, that doesn't work. So it has to be like a slow burn development. I think the best character development that I read is like when you get to the end of the book and then you look back at the beginning and you're like, oh my gosh, they've come so far and I didn't even realize it was happening.
Right. So you're talking about character development in the sense of this character transforms throughout the book and becomes something different. They grow, in other words.
Yes.
Beyond some of the struggles that they have at the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Is that not what you were asking? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I had that on the list to talk about. One example that I can think of recently is from the movie series, The Avatar, not The Last Airbender, The Blue People.
James Cameron.
Right, James Cameron. So in the first movie, the bad guy, the evil colonel or whatever he was, one of the complaints that people had was that he was so flat. He was just absolutely 100% evil, and like there was nothing motivating him. It was a very flat character.
I hated that character so much.
And it was good because you hated him, but it was kind of unbelievable that someone could be that just utterly wicked. Though
people are, though.
I think some people are. In the second book, they gave him a son, and he was dead, so they transplanted his brain into one of the blue people.
An avatar, yeah.
Like, so I think those were the things that they came up with to make him more complex.
Yeah, he related more to the Na'vi people.
Right, because he was one, basically.
At the beginning of the movie, he's acting like he doesn't care that the kid is his son. Exactly. What do they call him?
I don't know.
Do you remember? I can't remember either. Monkey Boy.
Monkey Boy, yeah.
That's what they called him. He related more, at the end, he started caring about what happened to Monkey Boy.
Right. And there was some character development with him towards the end, I think, because, like you said, he didn't care in the beginning, but by the end of the movie, do we care about spoiler alerts?
Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Avatar: The Way of Water, skip forward to the designated timestamp on the thing that we're going to put in here.
So by the end of the book, or the movie, this guy does end up caring about his son to the point where he stops his current course of action in order to save his son, not son.
Right.
Right. So that's a good example of character development throughout the movie, but then also like building a character that is more complex.
Yeah.
Instead of flat.
So tell me what you were, like, you tell me what you were asking with the first question. Like, what, do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically that character in the Avatar series, in the first movie, he's very flat.
Oh, no. That's not what I mean. I mean, when you asked about complex versus flat characters, you said you weren't talking about them growing as a character. Were you talking about creating a character?
Right. So, if you want a character that is you want a character that's believable.
Right.
So we as people are complex beings. We
Yes.
have history, we have trauma, we have many things that shape us into the people we are. Mm-hmm. We're not just this very flat thing that was born and then almost coded like a computer and then we just go and do things.
Right.
So there are many different factors that go into what a character does, how they react.
Yeah.
And so when you're writing a book, it's good to think about those types of things. For instance, a lot of people use character sheets, and they will have a backstory for their character so that when they're writing a scene, you can think about how this character would react, how they would respond because of their past.
Yeah. So, funny story, I've actually used character sheets for my 2 main characters that I'm writing. And I've basically scrapped all of it because I was just like, I need to answer these questions, so I need to figure out something to put in this box. And then I'm writing things that aren't true or aren't applicable to my character, especially since a lot of character sheets, I feel like, are aimed toward more modern character development. Like, they'll ask questions about what's their favorite coffee drink? And I'm like, no, that's not important.
That's funny. I've seen some tips online, and I think there's a caricature of doing this where, like, you give a character something quirky, like a character that walks around with a yo-yo, and he's always playing with this yo-yo. And it's just kind of a stupid caricature of giving your person something that makes them distinctive.
Yeah. So actually, the first thing I thought about when you said that was in Jeff Wheeler's Fireblood.
Right.
The monk character, I thought of him. Like, he had a great character development. I thought he was, like, a really well-rounded character.
He was a very good character.
And you said yo-yo, and I thought of his stick that he always carries around.
Yes.
He, like, sits on top of.
Yeah, he could just, like, perch on top of the stick.
Mm-hmm. But, so, here's the other thing, though. You can make a character too quirky. And I have read a book where a character was so quirky, I was irritated and almost couldn't finish the book.
Right, that's almost the extreme example of a flat character. He's flat in the sense of, like, it's just unbelievably quirky.
Right. Nobody cracks jokes that much.
Right.
Nobody's that sarcastic. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that are that sarcastic, but nobody likes them, so they wouldn't be a main character.
Yeah. If you had a character like that, you would need to, at some point, probably earlier in the book, crack the facade and show that they are deep. They are hurting, and perhaps they use this as a mask for the pain that they're trying to cover up. Mm-hmm. Something like that. And that would actually be an interesting, complex character. Yeah,
but it has to be done well. Because if it's not, it just sucks and kills the entire book.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also supporting characters. I feel like, at least in my own experience, I haven't invested as much thought or planning into who they are as a character.
Yeah.
It's just somebody that comes on the scene and does some stuff, and they help the main character reach some goal.
Right.
And this may be different depending on the size of the book. So with a middle grade book, there's really only a couple characters that you want to focus on. Mm-hmm. With an epic fantasy, you have many more characters that you need to develop.
Yeah, The Shadow of What Was Lost that I just read by James Islington, it had like 7 supporting characters.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Who is this person? Like, why do I care about their uncle? I'm confused.
And they're probably not just short on the scene for a chapter and they're gone.
They like show up at the beginning and they like make the journey, but they're not viewpoint characters.
Right.
Except for sometimes, which is still confusing to me when people are just like, random viewpoint, and then only one chapter. It's only one chapter of viewpoint, and then we move on.
Do you want to talk about your character and how you've developed her?
Yes, sort of. Maybe. I'm not sure. She's struggling. So, let me just try and be as vague as possible so I don't give everything away. My character, like I was explaining to you earlier, my character behaves the way that she does. Her personality is the way that she is because of a trauma that has happened in her past. Here's what I struggle with. Writing her as believably traumatized, but as equally functional human without just trauma dumping on my readers.
Yes.
I need to figure out a good way to communicate that she is affected by things that have happened in her past.
Right.
But she's working towards working through those problems and is, doing so in a way that an actual human would.
Right.
So my brain, I'm like clinically dissecting like ways to get through trauma. And I'm like, in this chapter, she's going through this problem. This one, she's doing this. I'm like, that's not how humans work.
Right. I think we were talking, it's easy to explain your character to somebody and how and why they would react to things. It's much more difficult to write it. Basically, you don't want to info dump. This is why this character is doing this, because she was abused when she was a child, or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But to show that in the writing, in the narrative, is very difficult.
I think another thing that I struggle with my main character is she is very similar to a lot of characters that I've read.
Right.
But for different reasons. But then she still behaves similar ways. And so I'm like, am I stealing right now? I don't think I'm stealing because she's...
You're just writing for the market.
She's different, but she's the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's really... Because there are only a few ways, I feel like, that you can, like, write a character. Like, there's only a few personalities that are realistic enough to write as a main character. And so, there's a lot of main characters that are the way that she is. Then again, I also have a second main character who is absolutely flat right now. I'm like, I don't know who he is, but he's showing up in the second or third chapter, and he's gonna do some stuff.
My main character is similar in the sense that he's like every other book you've read in the middle grade. So, if you read
Harry Potter.
Yeah, if you read Harry Potter, he's this gangly, kind of rebellious kid who has to fight against evil and do amazing things, even though he's kind of the underdog. It's similar in so many middle grade stories about a boy that age.
Well, that's the thing, because that's what, like middle schoolers relate to. They want to be that character because they feel misunderstood. Yes. And so writing a misunderstood character is the best way to draw in their attention.
That's right. So, I mentioned writing to the market earlier, and it's exactly what you want to do if you want to sell a book. Mm-hmm. You don't want to write something that nobody wants to read. You want to write something that is enjoyable for other people to read.
Yeah, so me writing my main character as a grumpy teenager is going to really reach out to all those grumpy teenagers.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the other things that I've been working with is a supporting character. My main character is a 12-year-old boy, and the second, the supporting character is a younger girl. I haven't quite pegged her age, probably 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. So she's just young enough to be annoying to the main character.
But, like, cognizant.
Right. But she's not just a useless child. And so she is like the mouthy, talkative, annoying one.
Hermione.
Right, exactly. Yes. Exactly. And so she's almost there as comic relief.
Yeah.
So she's going to interject a lot of life into this kid who's kind of more sullen, but is very wily, and he has to figure a lot of things out. So there is magic in the world that I'm writing, and the main character doesn't have magic, and that's one of the things that gets him down is he wants to use magic, but he can't.
Yeah.
And this secondary character, the quirky girl, she can, but she's not very good at it because she's very young. Mm-hmm. And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, it should be fun.
No. Our world building podcast got 20 listens.
Yay.
So I don't think very many of our listeners are familiar with the duo tropes. But basically, in essence, the character duo that I'm writing is Grumpy Sunshine. Whereas the young teenage girl is grumpy and her companion man is Sunshine.
Right.
But I think that kind of helps balance.
It's sort of the opposites attract trope.
But the other thing, like, my characters also have magic, and one of them is very excited and very prepared for this magic that he has obtained in whatever way that he does.
It's the male version of Hermione.
Yeah, he's very excited. He's been, trained for this his whole life. He's really excited about it. She never thought that this would happen to her, and she just wants to do whatever the heck she wants to do.
Right.
And so he's like, no, we can't do that. And she's like, well, too bad. I want to. And so it's a struggle to write the story around that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
If that makes any sense. What about bad guys?
Yeah, writing bad guys. I have done some work on my bad guy. How about you?
My bad guy sucks right now.
I guess if we want to sound haughty-toddy, then we should say the antagonist.
Antagonist? I mean, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Right now, in my head, my bad guy is that guy from the Bolt movie with the one green eye and the one blue eye.
Yes.
So I'm trying to develop him a little bit more than an animated character in my head. Yeah, it should be interesting. He's got motive.
Yeah. And
he's got... I think actually my bad guy is probably more developed than my main characters because I had to have a reason for them to go on this adventure, Yeah,
so my evil antagonist, my bad guy, his primary motivation is that he wants to fix the world. Mm-hmm. So he prefers order, and he doesn't like randomness. He doesn't like people being able to just do what they want. Sort of like
Communism.
Our government. And so his motivation to conquer, basically, really is out of a desire for the common good. He's also just a little insane.
Yeah.
Because he used his magic in a way that led to him losing his mind, and so he's trying to fix the world out of a bad place.
Yeah.
Which is causing a lot of bad things to happen.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my bad guy is not like that. He does not have the common good in mind. He wants to have all the power and be in charge of everything. And I think that even that can make someone having a lot of power and being greedy in that way can also lead to a little bit of insanity.
Absolutely can.
So that should
in real life
lead to some fun chapters.
Yeah, now we just have to write it.
Darn, that's the worst part. Execution is the hardest part of writing.
It really is. Speaking of execution, how have you done on your New Year's resolution to write 5 minutes a day?
I was hoping you would bring this up. So it is January when we're recording this, January 14th. I've written 3 times this month.
I've written about the same amount.
However, I have written about 5,000 words.
Oh, that's great.
So that's good.
That's many more words than I've written.
It's been in very short bursts over 3 days. So I'm failing, but I'm going to continue trying.
Yeah.
Which is the point of a resolution, right?
That's right. It's not perfection. It's just a direction.
What about you?
Also failing. So I've written about 2 or 3 times as well. One of those times wasn't even on the fiction. It was just on a blog post.
Lame.
I still count it because it's writing, but...
No. I think I read your blog. It was good.
As we wrap up, what books are you reading?
Well, I am still reading Allegiant by Veronica Roth. I think I'm 3 chapters into the beginning, and then I got distracted and bored. So, still working on that. I'm reading The Way of Kings, but I'm also not past the prologue. But here's the thing about The Way of Kings. It's got 3 prologues.
Yes,
it's
does.
Prologue, and then pre-prologue, and then right before the first chapter, 200,000 years ago. And I'm so I'm working through that. There's a lot of characters being introduced. There's a huge, very complex magic system being introduced. So I'm trying to manage understanding it enough so that when I move forward in the book, I understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And then just for some easy reading, I'm also reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Great book, great book. I finally finished Anti-Fragile, the book that I was listening to for many months. It was a great book. I'm probably going to buy a hard copy of the book and go through it again for my own benefit. As far as fiction, I still have the other 2 books that I want to finish. The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson and Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Some days I feel like just giving up on that one.
We just need power through, man.
Right. But this morning, for a light read, on the way here, I pulled up an audiobook of The End of the Magi by Patrick Carr. And it's the story of the wise men or the magi that go to find Jesus. So he has a really curious take that Daniel, who was in Babylon, was one of the main primary magi who formed this society of wise men to watch for the Messiah. And so it's through his work that they finally end up going to see Jesus.
Interesting.
And this is the season of Epiphany, if you follow the church calendar. So that's all about the wise men and the magi, and the fact that the gospel goes to all nations, not just the Jews.
Woohoo!
Thank you for joining us in the 7th episode of Writing on Caffeine. We hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks. Please subscribe wherever you find podcasts, and if you are so inclined, please leave us a review. 5-star reviews are preferable. Be sure to visit the website, Writing on Caffeine, where you can view the show notes and subscribe to our email list so that you never miss an episode.
Bye!
Bye-bye.
I feel like I'm kind of just rambling a little bit.
Oh, that's fine. Cut that out. Fix it in post.
Yeah.